Hello, everybody. I've been keeping guppies for going on 35 years. I'll be 43 this year, and I got my own fish tank in my bedroom the first time when I was 8. My mom and dad got me a bunch of feeder guppies, and that was my first fish tank ever. My dream has always been I wanted to create my own line of guppies, and up until now, I never really had the know-how years ago. The resources are the time to do it. So what you're looking at here is my own line of guppies I've been working on. I'll explain to you guys how I made it and what I plan to do with them in the future. And I'm going to be calling them, since I made them, I can call them whatever I want. I'm going to call them Rainbow Lightning Guppies. And here's the story of how they came to be. So for years and years, I just kept whatever pretty guppies I liked and saw, mixed them up. Never really had lines. I was just a guppy keeper and enjoyed the beauty of them. But when I started getting all these tanks and wanted to be a breeder, the very first line of guppies I ever got was a red mosaic line, and I think they ended up being my favorite line I've ever had. So I've had these well over 6 years now, the red mosaics. And then some guy wanting to trade some Japan blue guppies for my rainbow tiger antlers that I got from Lucas Brett's 5 or 6 years ago come to me wanting to trade. That guy, Jeff, aka Valley Fish, ended up becoming one of my very best friends. And I really ended up enjoying the glowing blue bodies of these Japan blue guppies. Then I got to thinking, man, oh man, if I could just put that blue body on that red mosaic guppy, that would be my total dream fish. And that was all these years ago. Back then, Japan blue, red mosaic crosses existed, but they were like $70 or $80 a pair. And back then, I just wasn't able to spend that kind of money on one pair of guppies. So if you can't buy it, I decided to create my own. I tried a few different times back then, many years ago. Well, 5 or 6 years ago. I tried many times, 2 or 3 times. But in reality, back then I was only home 2 or 3 days a week from work, and I was really limited on what I was able to accomplish back then. I just wasn't able to make it happen, really. So back then, before I went crazy with shrimp, I had lots and lots of different guppy lines. Some of them were really pretty nice. And I put all my calls in my stock tank pond. I call it my inside guppy pond. Many of you guys that are familiar with the channel know all about my inside guppy pond. As the years go by, I'm adding calls into it. Then as I end up turning my tanks into shrimp tanks, whatever line of guppies I was getting rid of, I just scooped them all out, tossed them in that guppy pond, and the genetics happened. Whatever happened. I enjoyed whatever crazy random things popped up. And it went on that way for 5-6 years, over 5 or 6 years. It was every single guppy line and every single inler line I ever owned had some kind of genetic footprint in my inside guppy pond. So a couple years ago, I started getting these guys pop up in my mixed guppy pond. I thought, wow, these are really close to the line I dreamed of making all those years ago. They sure looked a lot like Japan blue and red mosaic crosses, but being in such a mixed tank, they had to have some kind of mixed lineage. I mean, everything I'd ever kept had some kind of genetic footprint in there. When I started getting those guys popping up, I decided I gotta do something with these sweet male guppies that are randomly popping up. So I grabbed the best 3 I could find in the whole pond and put them in with 10 virgin red mosaic females. And to my amazement, every single fish that popped up out of that group had the Japan blue body and some form of red mosaic, different colored rainbow mosaic, different color mosaic tail. Hence the name, Rainbow Lightning Guppies. The blue looks like a bolt of lightning with a big splash of rainbow color at the tail. When that first group bred out, there was a lot of variance in the mosaic tail and the quality of the blue, but I knew I was onto something pretty special. I thought it was pretty cool, and so I let the first generation breed out, kept only the best, restarted it again. I did that a couple of times where I let some breed out and kept only the best, restarted it. And then about the second or third time I did that, I had two really, really special males pop up. Now, they were super bright, brilliant colors, but they had the shorter, smaller tails. So other than those two that I kept, I still had lots of pretty good ones. They were starting to get pretty good by this point. So like I put the second, third, and fourth place males, or the third, fourth, fifth, sixth place males in my moss pond, and some of my best females in there after restarting with just those two special males. And that has gone on to be my colony that I'm keeping. I keep it highly culled, but I keep that going for genetic variants because the rest of them I am highly selective breeding, and so I'm trying to keep them from getting too inbred too fast. Then after those two males popped up, I knew I was really onto something really special, in my opinion anyway. And so then I decided my old goldfish pond I hadn't really done anything with other than let water lilies and water plants grow out there. There hadn't been any fish out there for like 5 or 6 years. I decided I was going to get that going again and use it for my seasonal guppy grow out. So I took the females that were pregnant by those special two males. Well, the males didn't live long enough to get to pond season, but they had made daughters, and then they bred their daughters and made granddaughters, and they knocked up their granddaughters. And so we had some really line bred guys going on there. And like I said, I didn't want them to get too inbred. And so then I got some of the very best ones from the colony that had the big flowing fins, because the ones that were in my selectively line bred tank were the smaller fin but more brilliant colors, while the others that were in the colony had a little less color, but they had the big flowing fins that I wanted. And so I mixed them together, hoping to get a combination and try to avoid too much inbreeding. And the results are pretty good. This is what you see here. And so this is the group I started off outside in the pond with. Putting them in. And here we are when I pulled them out. So when I pulled them out, I've got random groups out, put them in specimen containers, and look for fish to pull that were not quite up to par. Usually I only ended up having to pull like 3 of them, and there's only one, and this one is the only fish that these guys ever made that didn't have that right there. You can see it. He didn't have the red mosaic tail. He looked like he was just going to be a regular Japan blue male. Of course, he was young and he might have developed some kind of tail, but I went ahead and pulled him out. But you can see here, just take a look at these randomly pulled out fish. They're all really pretty consistent considering there are hundreds and hundreds. Now, after I put them in the tank, I did end up pulling like 5 or 6 more out. But usually I'm pulling the fish that have they're too dark, and a lot of the dark ones will have weird Japan blue dots on them. Now, eventually I'd like to breed those dots completely out, but they're pretty persistent. But that's an eventual goal. So the plan is every year I'm going to work on something. I'm going to take a group. When I bring them in for the end of the summer, I'm going to take the best breeders and work on those to make a breeder group for the next year. And so then I have lots and lots of really good fish to share on my website, markshellyaquatics.com. But I was really surprised. I've been surprised all year. I've been checking on the babies, and I've been really surprised. Now, when I was pulling them out, I said I only pulled like 3 or 4 out. Look at these in the cold bucket. These two guys, it's the Japan blue male that didn't have the good tail, and one of the really dark ones with the weird Japan blue dots, and they ended up deciding they were arch enemies. I'm not sure I've ever seen 2 male guppies go at it this bad. This is like a couple of cichlids fighting to the death. These guys decided they didn't like each other, and that guy's just like, hey, what the heck's going on? The babies that accidentally ended up in there like, ah, crap, I'm getting away from this. crazy. And then this is the group that I ended up starting my 75-gallon tank with. And here's the pond right now. Even after taking all those fish out, you can see there's still clouds and clouds of fry. I still have so many of these guppies out here. It's crazy. I have some really good bluefin females, so I think the breeding group I'm going to work on for next year is going to focus on working on the females, because up till now, I've 90% of the time focused mainly on the males and getting the male colors perfected. So the next year is going to be working on the females. So since we're talking about females, you can see the females are pretty much just a little bit plainer version of the red mosaic females. Are pretty much similar. This is pretty much what they look like when I had my red mosaic line gun. There's some that I need to pull out that are pretty plain. But like I said, we're going to go for some of those really blue finned ones that are still outside. And we're going to dedicate another tank to line breeding those out for the next year's batch to go outside. Pretty exciting stuff. So this is nowhere near a finished product. This is a pretty nice start to a really good line. And so I'm going to make them available pretty cheap on the website. I think you'd have a pretty hard time finding guppies this cool for as cheap as I'm going to sell them anywhere else. So they will be available in the next week or so. They just got their last dose of the deworming meds. I don't think any of them has showed signs of being any problems, but just as precaution, bringing them in, I'm giving them a full deworming treatment, which consists of a week, 3 doses over a week. And so sometime next week, check my website and these will be available for sale. So I hope you guys enjoy them. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and my journey on making them. And if you're interested in them, check some out. They'll be cheap on my website. I think I'm only going to start them at like $12 or $15 a pair. So I got thousands of fish to get rid of. So please help me out, or I'm going to have to start I'm not going to give them away, but sell them real cheap wholesale to the pet stores. And I don't ship guppies or pluckos throughout the winter. So if you want some, get them quick. I need to get this tank cleared out because, like you saw, there's still hundreds and hundreds outside that I got to bring in the next month and a half. So thank you guys for watching. I'm super pumped about having my own guppy line. I actually ended up doing away with all my other guppies. Instead of trying to keep 4 or 5 lines badly, I decided to dedicate the space I'm using for guppies to perfecting these guys and making the very best guppy line that I possibly can. Because these guys are showing so much promise, I think they're going to be worth it. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.